Resident Evil.
Alright, so look, I'm almost certain that Resident Evil 1 ruined modern games for me. I beat this game about a month ago, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. I feel like everything that made this game great came together in such a way that's left an impression forever. For me, Resident Evil 1 made me realize what modern gaming is missing, and honestly, it's changed my expectations for games moving forward. So today, I want to talk about why that is, and hopefully get someone out there listening who's never played it to finally give it a shot. So with that being said, sit back, relax, and grab yourself a Jill sandwich. Let's get into it. So one of the first things you're going to notice when you start Resident Evil 1 are the fixed camera angles. I remember my first time playing this game, which is over 3 years ago, and I remember appreciating the uniqueness of it, but overall disliking it because I was so used to an over the shoulder view that games of today use all the time. It's very easy to write this off as being outdated, especially considering that the other remakes don't use this feature, but in my opinion, that's part of the overall package that is Resident Evil 1. Now a person could be forgiven for being put off by it. It took me years to build up the will to play this game again because of it. In real life, my sense of direction is absolutely abysmal, so there was no way that I was going to be able to navigate a literal mansion.
But what the hell, boy?
However, to the people who have gotten past this hurdle and have played this game, I'm confident you'll agree with me in saying that this is the first thing that sets it apart from modern games. It's both disorienting in that this mansion as a new player can be extremely confusing and feel like an insurmountable task to navigate, but it's also grounding in that I'm sure navigating an actual mansion could and would feel. The fixed camera angle puts you into Chris's or Jill's shoes and gives you a taste of what these characters would feel like in these situations. Now, if you're watching my channel, it's safe to assume that you see video games as an art form. That video games can be used to tell amazing stories, to convey things that would be so much harder or almost impossible in a different medium. The way Resident Evil uses its camera is nothing less than intentional in telling that story. Every sequence of the map, you're framed in a way that only lets you see certain parts of an area, which creates this feeling of tension and intentionality that modern games either lack or severely underutilize. Again, I feel as though this is a feature, not an indication of its age. I've seen plenty of people online who said that the camera angles are too clunky or that they're unnecessary, but speaking as a zoomer, I'd say that this small hurdle is the first step that made me realize that I had to adapt to this game. That this game is going to acquire things from me that I've never had to use with other games growing up, and once it clicked, it clicked. Now, as a sidebar, I'm actually in the process of playing Resident Evil 2.
Everybody here freaking crash out, bro. I hate you. Bro, look at Leon, bro. I know you hurting, bro. Don't try to hold it together.
And I have to say, when I immediately booted it up, I felt as though the lack of the fixed camera angles kind of took something out of the series, and I feel as though it lost a bit of its charm. Now again, I haven't finished 2 or the rest of the series just yet, so I can't fully speak on that aspect, but there was definitely a return to modern form that I didn't necessarily enjoy. The fixed camera angles to me are great because it takes away player choice in how the set pieces are viewed, and to me, this is almost a mark of confidence in the atmosphere that the devs have built here. The fixed camera in Resident Evil Remake makes for an incredibly cinematic experience, and for how old this game is, that's a feat in itself. Now, modern games do indeed create cinematic experiences. I can't help but look at games like Red Dead 2, where any angle from this game could be considered a painting. But any nuanced gamer knows that cinematic isn't always synonymous with realism. In my experience, the thing that makes something cinematic is the framing, that of which Resident Evil 1 excels at. Not only does the framing of this Resident Evil play into the horror elements, essentially taking away your sight and leaving you guessing as to what's around the corner, with sometimes only the groan of a zombie or its footsteps being your only clues. It also looks really damn good. This shot right here, when I first played this game, it absolutely freaked me the hell out, but it also looks so beautiful that I had to stop and admire it. And in the modern gaming world, I feel as though marveling at a game, really taking your time, is a bit of a lost art. Resident Evil 1 almost forces you to wait and take it in. There's a joke there, but I'm way too mature to make it. With that being said, the next thing you'll notice after fumbling around with the movement system is the atmosphere, and I believe that it's one old and new players alike can still appreciate. Now imagine this, it's nighttime, you've got headphones in, you have no idea where you're going in this game, and you have no idea if you have the right equipment. You're walking slowly, you analyze the screen for signs of a zombie, and then you notice it. There's no music, all you can hear is your own footsteps, and you tense up because now you feel the weight of this mansion. You almost feel overwhelmed by its size. You walk some more, and then when I played this game again recently, I experienced nothing short of moments of pure dread. While this game is a horror game, I wouldn't say it's a necessarily terrifying experience. No, this game more so leans into the anticipation of something scary actually happening. I'd imagine it's quite hard for gamers of today to get scared of a game originally made in 2002, but Capcom did something special with this game. Whether it be a dog coming to get a taste of that
Jill sandwich,
or a zombie randomly bursting out of a door, or even just the first couple times you experience the loading doors expecting something to pop out.
Did not hit her.
Despite its age, it can still deliver. Now yes, this game does have music, but it uses it very sparingly and very intentionally. One of the best examples of this is with the music that plays in safe rooms. This track is nigh on perfect for portraying the feeling of safety one feels when you finally find a safe room. But if you really listen, and I mean really listen, this track almost acknowledges that while you may be safe, there's still horror right outside that door, and you can't stay here forever. It's a reflective piece, one that showcases the mood of the player. You're thinking, wow, I barely escaped back there. I can rest for a bit. I should take inventory of my equipment and hopefully survive long enough to escape. It's like a brief respite in song form. Now at this point in the game, you probably noticed the backgrounds of the Spencer Mansion. On my first full playthrough, I remember getting really confused about which objects were part of the backgrounds and which were actual interactable objects. Some of the puzzles in this game as a first time player are actually pretty difficult, and not knowing that I can push things. Because this game didn't tell me was definitely an eye-opening experience. For me, growing up with fully 3D rendered games, I've never had this problem. I could immediately tell which objects were the ones I could pick up and which ones were useless and just set dressing. In Resident Evil 1, unless it glows, I mostly couldn't tell. See, the backgrounds in the Resident Evil remake are pre-rendered, meaning these environments are created in a 3D software and rendered out as 2D images and then placed in the game. Now, this method got phased out eventually because the ability to create real-time backgrounds became more readily available, which in turn gave players more freedom and interaction with the world around them. That being said, in this game, the limitation of the hardware really plays to its advantage. Now, call this a skill issue, but I've never understood why people say a setting can be a character. However, with the Spencer Mansion, save for the few humans inside, you're alone a good majority of the time. This mansion feels lonely, it feels static, still, almost unnaturally still. And you can tell that when the house was in its prime, it had this sterility to it that made the place never feel quite like a home. Rather a maze that you could, by coincidence, sleep in. The non-moving, almost lifeless backgrounds acted like a way to portray its stillness, making the creep factor even more pronounced. Again, I've not fully played the rest of the Resident Evil games, but as of right now, the other set pieces have very steep competition. With that being said, feel free to share your opinions about the best setting in Resident Evil games and why you think so. But anyway, you've taken in all the atmosphere, you're getting a bit familiar with the Spencer Mansion and maybe even starting to remember where certain rooms are without looking at your map. At this point, you probably caught on to the gameplay loop that Resident Evil as a whole is so known for. Aside from the fixed camera angle in Resident Evil 1, the backtracking in this game really threw me for a loop, pun intended. See, in the games I grew up playing, despite them sometimes being open world, the actual progression was pretty linear. Take something like Skyrim, for example. A beautiful open world, but when you had a quest, you were given a waypoint. Steal this, talk to this person, kill that person, etc, etc. With Resident Evil, you have to backtrack several different places in order to get up to the next room or portion of the map. For example, one of the first puzzles you'll find, and the one that really made everything click for me, was finding the armor key. Now in the mansion, you'll find yourself needing 4 keys to access the main parts, that being the sword key, the shield key, the helmet key, and the armor key. Now I don't want to spoil too much, but the armor key is going to be the second key you'll need to pick up right after the sword key. To get the sword key, you need to do the following. Head to the mirror corridor on level 2F, you'll come across a room where another key is laying on a tile on the floor. However, if you pick it up, this happens. So obviously, we don't want to become a
Jill sandwich.
So we put it back. We head back outside and pick up the golden arrow. Examine it, remove the top of the arrow, head back out into the main hall of the mansion, go to the cemetery section of the map, go into the headstone, place the arrowhead on top of the headstone, and then head down into the grave. Then you pick up the Book of Curses, examine it, open it, and get the sword key. Now at this point, you'll have the ability to enter more parts of the mansion as mentioned before, but from here, you have to go to the east study on the second floor to acquire a dog whistle. With this whistle, you'll find a note that reads, "Today, Sir Spencer told me to hide something where no one could find it. Well, I had this idea. I figured if I could somehow have it protected by a dangerous animal, like the vicious canine that lives here, no one would be able to get near it. As far as I can tell, the mother's always hanging around the second floor balcony on the west side of the terrace, and he ought to come running at the sound of a dog whistle. This is where you come in. The thing is, I reckon you're the only person that can get near the damn dog without risking a serious mauling, which means only you can get this collar on him. The object Sir Spencer wants hidden is concealed inside. You're the only person I can trust with this. Of course you'll get something out of it as well. Remember that certain item that you've always wanted to get a hold of? Well, in exchange for your services, I might be able to get it for you. This could work out well for both of us." Now, did you catch that? Because at first, I didn't. This note literally tells you where to go, and I had no clue. See, with modern games, I feel as though certain notes or memos or what have you are just there to be there. You know, sure, they can be mostly used for world building or lore exposition, but ultimately, they're not really there for like actual gameplay purposes. And maybe that's the nature of a survival horror game, but that note telling you what you needed to do did not register to me at all. Am I stupid? Probably, but don't blame me. Blame game developers. Now, over the years, I've gotten pretty good at skimming and retaining information from data logs or notes or what have you, and they've never really been important for progressing the game. With Resident Evil 1, almost everything is important. That's not to say that some things aren't useless information, but it's framed in a way that's like an explanation of an observation that your player is making. But the note that you can read essentially laid out everything that needed to happen and what was going to happen. Go to the balcony, blow the whistle, deal with the dog, get the collar. But anyway, at this point, you'll acquire the dog collar. You have to examine it, and then you'll acquire the imitation key. Now remember that place where if you took that key, it would lead you to being eviscerated? Well, let's go back there. Now after you get the imitation key, you have to place it down on that tile. And now you got the armor key, meaning of course, more rooms open up to you. Now as you know, most modern games sort of hold your hand. I know where to go. I know what to do in most modern games. However, going forward, I'll be looking for games that don't throw the obvious answer in your face. I want information to be given to me naturally, and let me have to figure out what the game is trying to tell me. Resident Evil 1 not only respects your intelligence, but it trusts it. And there's several other puzzles that go similar, but they're set up in different ways that kind of keep things fresh all throughout. Another thing that keeps you backtracking is inventory management. Now there's not too much to say here. As Chris, you get 6 inventory slots and a built-in space for a lighter, making his gameplay a bit more difficult. As Jill, you get 8 slots and a space for a built-in lockpick. Now you get safe rooms where you can place items you don't immediately need into a chest. Those chests are available in all safe rooms, and the items in your chest are there as well. However, once you're outside of those safe rooms, you only have access to the items that you immediately have in your inventory, so you have to plan accordingly. If you need to open a door with the armor key and you don't have it on you, you have to go back and navigate to a safe room to go get it. So hopefully you didn't leave any zombies alive in those tight hallways, because the worst thing is when you're low on health, you know you have health items in your chest and you have to navigate around those zombies. But no, you're fine, right? You shot all the zombies in that hallway, you should be good, right? Crimson heads are another reason why a person would backtrack in this game. I don't want to spoil too much, but when you quote unquote kill a zombie, it's down for a good amount of time. Come back after a while and it will become faster, stronger, and so much louder. Also, it has this gross red color, making these monstrosities obviously different from their previous form. And God forbid if you don't have enough ammo or green herbs to deal with these things, because you'll definitely at some point have to run back into a hallway where these things are for sure. Crimson heads, in my opinion, are genuinely terrifying, and there's only one way to ensure a zombie doesn't become one. Either shoot them and hope to God that their heads explode, or actually, if you know the other way, you know. But for the people who haven't played this game, I'll let you find the note that explains how to kill them efficiently for yourself. So I won't touch too much on the story here, this is not the video for that, but all you need to know is that
Alpha Team is flying around the forest zone situated in northwest Raccoon City, where we are searching for the helicopter of our compatriots, Bravo Team, who disappeared during the middle of their mission. Bizarre murder cases have recently occurred in Raccoon City. The Bravo Team was sent in to investigate, but we lost contact.
Admittedly, the story is nothing special, and while I love the story overall, it's really not the main appeal here. The story and the dialogue is very B-movie horror-esque. You know, it's campy, it's cheesy, and it's like a love letter to those 80s and 90s horror movies. And don't get me wrong, that should absolutely not put you off of playing this game, because this is like the starting point for the series as a whole, and every game goes back to it somehow, so I consider it essential playing. And no, don't just skip to Resident Evil 4, but no, I want to touch on a story that gets told in a much more subtle way. That of Lisa Trevor. Lisa Trevor is the first of many tragic characters throughout the Resident Evil series, and piecing together her story through notes and memos broke me. Now, if you're at all interested in hearing this story for yourself in-game, I highly recommend that you skip this section. I'll put a timestamp here. But with that being said, Lisa Trevor was the daughter of a skilled architect named George Trevor. He was known for his expertise in booby traps and puzzles, and he impressed Oswald Spencer so much that he hired him. Now, Oswald Spencer is a key figure in establishing the Umbrella Corps, so let's keep that in mind. However, upon the completion of the mansion, Oswald no longer needed George and decided to kill him because he knew of the secrets within the mansion. However, Oswald decided not only to kill George, but also his entire family. Man, this resident is so evil. After finding out, George hides in one of the many puzzle rooms that he created and stays there for a time before dying of starvation and dehydration. In the game, we find a note from him saying, "At that instant, it all became clear to me. Those bastards knew from the beginning that I'd die here, and I fell right into their trap. But it's too late now. I'm losing it. Everything is becoming so far away. Jessica, Lisa, forgive me. Because of my ego, I got both of you involved in this whole damn conspiracy. Forgive me. May God justify my death in exchange for your safety." At this time, Oswald invites George's wife, Jessica, and a 14-year-old Lisa Trevor to check out the mansion George had built. Shortly after their arrival, Oswald orders them to be experimented on, making them far from safe. Oswald ordered them to be experimented on with a virus called the progenitor virus. However, they were given 2 different strands. Jessica's virus took no effect and was killed because she yielded no results. Lisa, on the other hand, showed results and was kept as a guinea pig to be experimented on. As time went on, she began to transform into this hideous, disfigured monster with a declining mental state. As the viruses in her body stayed, it became harder and harder to test on her. At this point, the researchers began sending in imposters of Lisa's parents to test her psychologically, to see the effects of the virus, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. However, Lisa still recognizes that those imposters were not her parents, and actually began killing the imposters. She not only would kill them, but she would rip off their faces and stitch together a mask composed of their skin, believing that the parents, specifically the ones impersonating her mother, were disguised as her real mom, and in tearing off their faces, she'd find her real mom. And once she found her mom, she could give her face back.
Jesus Christ.
After some time, she was deemed unsuitable as a test subject and was quote-unquote killed. However, she survived at some point, and at some point, she escaped. Scientists noted that she took little to no damage in the attempt to kill her, and she was deemed nigh on immortal by the scientists. And I won't spoil where you find her, but I will say this, she's still there, and you hear her pretty early on in the game. But in conclusion, Lisa represents the human cost of Umbrella's ambition, a literal and emotional monster created through years of abuse. Now, despite this game being a remaster of a remake, this is widely considered to be the definitive experience and a shining example of how to do a remaster or a remake. Or you understand what I'm trying to say here. Resident Evil 1 challenged me. It made me think, it made me laugh, and it challenged my expectations for games moving forward. I want my intelligence to be used. I want the game opening up to me to feel rewarding. This is almost the same sentiment I hear people saying games like Elden Ring provides for them. And if that's right, it sounds like gamers of today yearn for this kind of gaming experience. And maybe instead of having to look to the future for these kinds of experiences, maybe we should also be looking to the past. Like I said at the beginning, I haven't been able to stop thinking about this game. I never played anything like it, and it made me realize I've never really had to think in video games the same way this game requires. This feels like an experience. I recall hearing stories of people drawing physical maps with notes to help them recall where certain things were in this game. And that, to me, that makes a full body gaming experience. Resident Evil changed everything for me, and I really hope the next couple of games in the series can give me that same feeling. But with that being said, I've been Never Not June. Thanks for watching.